You're listening to Pro Booth Talk, education and insights for photo booth company owners.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Jason Whaley. We've got Lap Lee as always, and we also have a guest host with us today, Monica.
Is at that door.
Hey, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Hey, I am Monica Gunnerlock. I am Strikeup Host Atlanta, obviously in Atlanta, but we serve the East Coast. I've been in business for 7 years now, and just kind of at that 7-year stretch, like, what are we going to do next? Kind of phase of my business, and I'm just beyond honored to have even been asked to do this. I know you said you've recorded with a few other experts, and then you emailed me. Like, why? But yeah, I'm just honored to be here and have a conversation with you guys.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll answer that real quickly because this is new. We have interviewed a lot of, or not really interviewed, but guest hosted with a lot of industry experts in different fields, but we wanted to draw more of a community guest host. So we're starting this new listener spotlight where we're going to bring on probably quarterly, every couple months, a different listener and hear their story and hear about their company and where they're at in their photo booth world. So you drew the straw to be the very first one. So welcome.
Woo! Yeah, people can look back and be like, don't do that. And that's okay. But I started my business like a lot of DJs, actually. My husband owns and manages, well, at the time, my boyfriend has a corporate party band, and they do a lot of weddings, and they would go to a lot of cool places when it was an exciting place like New Orleans or any beach town. I was in. I'm like, let me come. I want to go. And that's awkward to be at an event like that where you don't know anybody but the band. So I thought, well, I should be paid to be here. And always been into photography, took lots of classes in college and high school. Back then we were in dark rooms and actually, developing film. So a lot has changed. But after a couple years of, mentioning that to my husband, I was like, hey, I really think this could be, just something fun on the side that I could do. He also had a full-time job as a school teacher, and it was his, side project per se. I'm like, why don't I do that so I can travel with you? And finally took the plunge, and I decided real quick, I don't like traveling on the road with a band. Sleeping in a moving RV or Sprinter van wasn't really for me, but also I could make the same amount of money at home and be home in my bed. So I'm just really excited that, my business took off. I was able to quit my job in 6 months and really focus on that. It was a thing where, luckily I was in a position that I could quit my job and my business wasn't like, I wasn't making 6 figures off the bat, but because I could focus 100% on my business, it just, excelled at such a faster rate because I was answering phone calls and emails and everything in a timely fashion. And I could put 100% of my energy into that versus splitting it a few ways. But that's we don't respect people that do both, because my friend Belinda is killing it in Houston. I'm like, how do you function?
Yeah, 6 months is really impressive.
It is, and it's an awesome starting story because so many people have the exact same story of I went to a wedding and thought I could do this better, and now here I am. And I feel like that's 90% of the industry. So it's refreshing to hear something a little different from somebody getting into that. But also, like you mentioned, being able to answer phone calls, because that's like we've got two of our people in-house right now are getting married. And like we're hearing every day, not just in the photo booth world, obviously, because they're not looking for a photo booth, but wedding venues, DJs, like nobody emails them back. Nobody calls them back. Like if they send an email to 10 venues, they'll hear back from 2 of them. And it is so bizarre. And it's the same thing in the photo booth world. We hear constantly when we are talking to clients, they're like, you're the only one that responded to us. It just blows my mind. Like the very first step, the easiest thing, like responding, and so many people just drop the ball right there.
Yeah, it's wild. That is something that is like so important to me. And it will be sometimes a few hours before I can reply for, whatever reason. And I'm always like, oh my God, it took me so long to reply. And then I quickly get a response back that's like, wow, thank you for answering so fast. Like, are you, what? Okay. But I experienced the same thing in, a lot of different avenues as well. And that's why, I think you had asked me a while back, like, what's something secret you do? And I don't want to give away any secrets, but answer your phone, respond to an email. It's like real basic and you wouldn't think it needed to be said, but that'll set you apart right there.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about, you said you grew in 6 months. Like, what did you do for anybody that's listening? Like, what did you do to see such fast growth? Like, that's the first thing that pops up in my mind. Like, wow, because I didn't grow that fast. So I'm curious, like, what did you do with your business? Like, was it service offerings that you did? Was it answering the phone quick and like getting those quotes out quick, proposals? Like, what did you do to grow so fast?
It was a lot of that. It was a lot. I had spent 20 years in the restaurant and catering and events world. So that really helped. My husband being in the wedding business already, I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and how that sort of stuff worked. So I put myself in places that event planners were. I did, I was at one point the person that was charging $4.99. But I quickly learned that wasn't sustainable. If I want to like have this as a living, like that's not gonna pay the bills. If I only wanted to make $4 on a Saturday, I can go wait tables. Why would I like do so much work for so little? But it certainly got me a lot of practice. It was a lot of cold calls. It was a lot of groundwork, but luckily I had my foot in the door in some places that, able to practice.
Yeah. You mentioned waiting tables, and I feel like a lot of these new companies in town or anywhere, and I see their prices, and like the first thing I always think is like, if you wanted to make that much on events, like just reach out to photo booth companies. I would have hired you and paid you more than you're making for this event you're working.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had to do the graphics or the client conversations or all of that stuff. You would have made as much or more by just working for a photo booth company.
Yeah, I learned that real quick. Like I said, my husband was a teacher, so immediately went to schools. I was like, hey, I'll do this thing. His school had an event, and I still work with that school, but they're paying a lot more money than when they started. And I was finding that, once I had multiple booths and had staff out, like at the end of the day, my staff was making more money than me. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so when clients ask, why is it more expensive? I mean, it's just easy. It's just for me to continue doing what I'm doing, I had to. And they get it. And that school in particular, I don't know, I posted a while back, but that school in particular, I've worked with for 7 years, multiple events throughout the year. And they went with someone else this year in February. I do February and March. And I thought, well, my husband no longer works there. We don't have that tie, like whatever, raise the price. And I saw the photos that come back. Before I could email them, they emailed me and said, are you available? Our photographer didn't work out. And on site, they said, we will never work with somebody else again.
That's the story.
So it felt great. But,
you see that a lot, like in the Facebook forums and stuff. People will be like, oh, don't worry, they'll be back. But a lot of times, like, we don't know that. But so I love hearing like the story where they actually did come back.
Yeah, that's such a true testament of like, just because you lose that client for that one event, that might actually cement you in as a forever vendor with them.
When I raise their price again next year, they're gonna not even bat an eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I did also screenshot that and save it.
Of course.
I'm like pretty good at reading people where, some people you have to be very formal with, and then other people you can kind of lighten the mood or, just be on a different level with them. And I've sent the funny like meme where it's like, I can do it for cheaper. And it's the tattoo of the unicorn where it's like, it looks terrible. I'm like, you will find someone out there, I promise you, that is a lot cheaper than I am. But ask to see their photos.
Yeah, it's not. Well, I think one of the questions that we had, Monica, was what do you feel is unique about your service area, like in terms of like any trends, parking, traffic, weather that you and your company have to deal with or even overcome or like have knowledge in?
Well, Atlanta is such a diverse city. And I can say that wholeheartedly, having lived in LA and San Diego and in a small town growing up in the mountains, 40 minutes from where you are right now, Lap.
No.
Yes. Went to high school in Lake Arrowhead. So I had small town growing up and then these big towns around me. Grew up going to Vegas for weekends. And I thought moving to Atlanta, people are like, oh, traffic will be bad or this or that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It is really diverse here. It's totally beautiful. I can be like in the city doing this ultra luxe, like high-end corporate or stadium event one day, and then turn around and go like 30 minutes the other way and I'm at a farm. Like, I know that so much advice out there is like, figure out who you are and what you want to go for and do that one thing. And I think it's great advice. That's just not me. I'm like, I can be in Madison Square Garden and then I'll be at your kid's school the next day. And I'm okay with that. And I like that. It's, yeah.
Can I
the
ask?
Traffic is terrible.
Can I ask?
What was the question?
Can
But
I
yeah,
ask?
people are crazy and different in every different way. And I think having come from a restaurant background where you have to know how to deal with all kinds of different people and people drinking, I've just learned to adapt to whatever situation I'm in.
Right. I wanted to ask about when you mentioned like what type of photo booth company do you want to be, and you like that you're flexible on your social media. What do you have highlighted? Do you have highlighted like the different types of like private parties and then, the event at Madison Square Garden? Like, do you have a diverse social media, like that you share diverse services on social media so that you showcase that you are encompassing all those different types of events, or are you focusing on one or the other?
Yeah, so I would say that that's a pain point for me, and maybe for a lot of people, for different reasons. But because I know your social media is supposed to look this way, then I'm like, well, my social media doesn't do that, and how do I do it? And I don't know how to do it, and should I just hire somebody to do it? So I do try to have different things. Honestly, can't tell you in the last time I posted on social media.
That's terrible.
I know. I'm good at the stories, but like then the grid, I get really nervous about that because it's forever, right? As if there's not a delete button. But it's definitely a pain point for me. How do I do that the right way? So I am very cognizant of that when I'm posting, that I want to have a little bit of different things. But at the end of the day, like corporate's my bread and butter. So even if I'm posting a wedding photo, I keep it real simple and corporate like or esque. I feel like because my clients are not coming from Instagram, I'm not getting business from Instagram. What I feel like happens is when people find my business via Google, word of mouth, connections I have, they go and look at my Instagram, but that's not where people are finding me. So I have photos on there. They can see that I'm a real company and that I do good business or good work, but certainly a pain point.
I think
I'm
it's
not
a pain
here
point
to
for a lot
tell
of us.
I'm a perfect business owner.
I'm laughing because I'm like telling you to get on it, but I am the same way. I have no idea when my when my last post was. We're active on stories for a reason though. 'Cause I feel like it's more forgiving on stories. Like you don't have to have like the perfect image of your event because it's more like behind the scenes and stuff. So we're pretty active with stories.
Yeah,
After a day, it's gone forever.
Yeah,
exactly.
which is a pro and a con, because sometimes I think, dang, I should have done that as a post, but it's already disappeared,
Well, you still can, and you can use your highlights for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if your story expires, you can go back into
if you go to your
history.
story archives, you could go back to your old stories and just add those to different highlights, and then they'll
Golden
be in your
nuggets,
library.
friends.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't gonna post it again.
Yeah.
Well, I
Just
actually
add it
did
to your
one
highlight.
recently. I wanted to show a client, like, clients just get confused on template and backdrop and background, and they're just so confused on things. But I really wanted to highlight how I asked them to send me their invitation and send me your save the date, and I'm gonna like curate the most beautiful things for you. Your template's gonna match, your album's gonna match, like everything matches. And I made this video, but like, like on email, it wants to compress it. On phones, it wants to compress it. I'm not an iPhone user, so that's like a crutch. Well, I actually have an iPhone. I should have done that. Anyways, so I just put it in my story. And I was like, here's how I do these things. And I didn't even love how I did it because I was trying to do it really quick before I left for an event, because you always get the phone calls and emails right before you're leaving on a Friday. And I threw it up on social media, and so many people were like, oh my gosh, you should do stories like that all the time. It was so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny the things that you see engagement on that you don't think is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Always.
Because
I've learned, in the business, I'm still learning. I am not my client.
Yeah.
Right. That's a huge one for me, because I'm real stubborn, but I'm definitely not my client.
Yeah.
If you could go back, Monica, you can go back, Monica, into like yourself from the early years. Like, is there any advice that you would sit there and give yourself, knowing what you know now and the experience that you've had through those 7 years? Like, what would you tell old Monica of year one?
My gosh, best in good products. That is such a crutch, like so foolish of me. I'm a bargain shopper. I love a good deal. But there are some things you just have to spend money on. And this is your business. I cannot tell you how much money I like wasted trying to make my own props. Like, that was about the dumbest thing I've ever done. I mean, not only like monetarily.
Yeah, Jason are shaking our heads like,
shopping.
Shaking
like
our
just
head.
being
Like,
out
I went
and
deep.
shopping. I spent hours of my time. And then like I look back on some of my like old ones. Like I made this like sign that said Glam Squad. It was so bad, but it was like my favorite thing, right? But it's like you waste so much money when you buy something cheap. When you're buying that 360 from China and then you don't know how to use it, there's no one to answer to you, or even Amazon. Yeah, just investing in good products and good software and like good people. Like,
and you're right.
There's just some things you don't scrimp on, Even
if it was the same product exactly, which it's not, but even if it was the exact same product, you're really right. Like, if you buy someone that's known in the industry, that's active in the community, as opposed to like Alibaba or something like that, like there's going to, not only are they going to be there to support you, but there's a massive number of people that also have those products that can help you with any issues that you have. Like when I bought my Mosaic software, I exclusively, like, I'm sure it's not this way now, but it was very new for photo party upload. They just, is it called Muse? I think they had just released that. So I was shopping between that and PhotoMasters, and I actually liked the Muse more, but the community for PhotoMaster was so massive, and I could go into that Facebook group and see that like any question that was asked was answered within an hour by numerous people that have already had those experiences. And the Muse, they didn't even have an individual group for that yet. It was kind of lumped into their other Facebook group, and there was really no communication or no conversation rather about the Mosaic software because it was new. So I went for the PhotoMaster just because, and it's nothing against Muse. I mean, they're obviously a very strong company, but if you're going with Alibaba, there is no community. There is no one that you can rely on or fall back on, and least of all, like the seller. They don't know how it operates. They copied someone else and kicked it out. They don't know anything about it.
Right. And just the quality of the product. If you buy a cheap product, the likelihood that it's going to break and you're going to have to buy it again and again and again, in the long run, you've spent more money. I utilize Best Buy for a lot of my stuff. I think, gosh, I opened my Best Buy card 7 years ago, and I probably pay Best Buy every month. It's just like on to the next thing. Once that like 0% is up, okay, well, let me buy something else and let me buy something else. Of course, every year I'm like, I'm not going to spend money this year.
Oh, man.
I just got 4 photo booths this year after I was like, I'm not spending any money this year.
We're all shaking our head in agreement with that. We all experience the same thing.
My wife's not here, and she's shaking her head somewhere.
I was going to say, not just the money aspect of it, because not only is money going down the drain with you trying to save money, but from my experience, the inconvenience of it, like, I can tell you, like, one of my experiences, this is when I first started, I bought a photo booth shell. Before, I used to punch holes into boxes and made my own DIY. Horrible. I'm embarrassed. Those are all burnt. Yeah. But like, when I bought a cheap photo booth, for me, it was a lot at the time, but it was like a few $100s. And I hated that thing because it was such a small thing that if you look at the photo booth, it looks fine. But where the camera sat, it didn't sit straight. So when I would show up to events, if you had a backdrop that had like any sort of horizontal, then I had to sit there for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes just trying to straighten and it's such a small thing, but it creates so much.
So your whole photo booth is
suffering.
crooked so that your camera is straight?
The whole photo booth was crooked, you guys. So you look at the shell. So when you're talking about money, the money is one thing, but just think of how horrible my experience was. I was stuck with this photo booth for like 2 years. So every event that I did, and back then when I was so cheap, I was booking like 4 events a day. So I used the same booth, 4 setups a day, and I had to wedge like, this is embarrassing.
I'd stick a prop under the leg.
Yes. Well, I couldn't afford props back then because I was so cheap. I stuck like extra, those extra sheets that shoot out of the printer. Like I would fold it and stuff it underneath.
Oh, yeah.
And that was horrible. Like, can you imagine investing that extra hour every single event 4 times a day, every single weekend? Like, it really cost me a lot of my time and energy just to get the freaking photos straight. Like stuff like that is
right.
Twice about investing in quality equipment because of that now.
Right. Well, yeah. Showing my stubbornness and even being in Atlanta, I'm like, what? I'm not my client. I don't like 360s. I think they're just stupid. That's me. And I think it was mostly you like, we're like, you need to do this. And everybody around me is like, what are you doing? And I finally got a 360. Thank you. It's the greatest thing ever. I love my Orca view. At this 7 years later, I've learned, I'm not my client, get this thing, but also get the good one, right? So I just went straight with the Orca view. And I actually brought, this kind of brings in 2 like cool conversations, but I brought another photo boother with me to my first 360 event because she'd been doing 360s for a while, but she didn't have the one I have. And I just I could do it by myself. I just needed
the support system.
Yes. I just need somebody there to make me feel better, and gosh forbid anything like go on that I need to troubleshoot, maybe she could help me. And, she looked at my Orca view and put it together and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. Oh my gosh, this is so, I can't believe how easy this is.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, you spend a little more and it just makes your life easy.
Yes. You see my eyes
you don't know.
Out of my head, guys.
Until like we thought that the 360 was going to be like I also hated it and felt that it was going to be more trendy. So I bought a really cheap 360. I actually bought it used from someone that bought it from like the Ukraine or something like that, and it was garbage. We didn't even know that. Like we knew it wasn't as good as the good ones, but we thought they were pretty much all the same. And when we saw, okay, we're booking this a lot, we need to get real equipment, and we bought the Orca View as well, and like all of our staff was just like, holy shit. like the amount of work, like we had no idea how much extra work, like we were leveling it out, like your same thing with your photo booth lap. Like every single event we had a box of shims, we had to like stand on it and wobble and make sure it was level. It was, everything about it was just a nightmare. Like we had to take it apart, and it just had like a monopod for the arm, so we had to take that off and have a machinist build our own so that it would be like solid and secure. and the orc review, like out of the box, absolute perfection. Everything, things that we didn't even know were missing, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And this has become a commercial for orc review.
Yeah, you're welcome.
They deserve
one of the reasons why a lot of people don't know, one of the reasons why my 360 was priced a lot higher was because I hated delivering 360s because it gave me so much anxiety. I always had team members running photo booths, but for the 360, if we booked a 360, because there was so much, it was so involved with the PC extensions, backup, Wi-Fi adapters, networking. It was so involved. It was beyond anything what we do for a photo booth. So many extra steps that we would set up like 3 or 4 hours early, and we would still be like, gosh, please don't have any connection issues. Like it gave me so much anxiety that I priced it knowing that I specifically had to be there. But once I switched over, it was like, wow, you literally drop. It really took, I was able to sleep better at night. Like I remember just waking up in a sweat the day before any 360 events we had, because I just knew like no matter how prepared I was, I couldn't overcome a lot of the things that possibly would and would come up,
Right.
For 360.
And that was a big concern for me too. I'm like, I don't know anything about this or how to set it up or, all of those things. But one thing that completely sold me on, and it could go back so many conversations within this too, is like we were on the cruise and the Bryn brothers we were chatting with probably before you guys had the conversation about doing a podcast, but we were at the casino bar and they, I think y'all were there and then the Bryn brothers and a couple other people, but they told me, they said, that's my staff's favorite one. It's so easy for them to run. That's the one everybody wants to work. And for me, like staff is also a pain point, probably for everybody. But like, I always want to take care of my staff. And when they told me like my staff love this, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Another like side branch would be like when a professional on one of the community pages does spend the money and get the good one, you're not sitting there telling them, well, I spent years of this and, here's all the problems I had with it. And, you've done the R&D for us. You're coming in there saying, just get this one, trust me. And people need to know, like, there's some weight behind that. Like, just listen. I'm telling myself
value
that
in listening.
I'm stubborn.
I mean, don't get us wrong. It's not like I didn't cry. I cried when I dropped the kind of money that I do on like a 360, knowing, you can get this same 360 on Amazon for like $900. Of course I cried. But when you've done this so long, you realize that you're not just paying for just a 360. You're paying for a lot more. And this is not just 360, because I don't want this to come off like as if we're giving a commercial for like a specific brand, because I have had the same experience with the printer. Like whenever someone asks, like, I'm shopping for printers, like what's a good printer, I went with the cheapest printer when I first started, and it was, I think we did that, Jason, in another episode too, right? Like I talked
we
about
just talked
how
about it a few episodes ago.
It created so much havoc for me because the printer driver kept uninstalling itself mid-event, so it created so many issues for me. So I really understand the value of like just investing in quality equipment from the beginning, even if it hurts, because if it's not going to cost you in the long run in monetary wise, it's going to cost you like peace of mind wise, like just your ability to sleep at night. It sounds dramatic, but it's what we do. Is some of these events that we do is like they're once in a lifetime event, so it's a huge deal if your printer stops working, Yeah. I lost my train of thought.
But
I'm gonna put you on this.
Well, even
put
just
you on the
the
spot,
media
Monica.
in general is like, huh?
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
So you mentioned sport. You had a friend come and help you, even though you probably didn't need it, but just for moral support, or just it's good to have other peers in the industry that are there to lean on and whatnot. And it's something that everyone says in every industry, not just ours, is create a circle of influence, have people that are on the same level as you and have some people that are above you and people that you could bounce ideas off of and create that circle of influence to help you move forward. And it's something that people say a lot, but don't often do. And I've got several different, besides the main Facebook groups, there's several smaller groups that I'm members of that are kind of small groups of colleagues and friends and things like that. And the most recent one that I've been included in is the one that you kind of put together. And I'd say like the first thing I think of when I think of you is like you are like a monster in the creating the circle of influence. I don't think I've ever seen anybody so successful as you. You've created this very unique family of people that work together and bounce ideas off each other way more than any of the other groups that I've been a part of. And it's still very young. You did that very quickly. I think very briefly after I met you, I was brought into this group of very wide range of people that all have different tools in their bag that they can contribute to each other. So talk a bit about that, your ability to quickly create this monstrous, powerful circle of influence around you that's benefited all of us.
It's like ability to connect people.
Yeah. Well, I just like community is like so important, right? And I love, well, first, going into the business and what would you tell someone new is like, go to PBX. And I had heard that for a long time and never went. Then when I went, I was like, okay, get it. It's so cool to be in a room with people that do what you do and understand your pain points or frustrations or have been where you were. Or, it's great when you've got somebody below you that you can, help raise up. And then, people like you guys that I can just sit and listen to, have a conversation and learn so much from and see a different perspective. And you were actually like kind of there, like groundwork day one in Las Vegas. George and I, George Velasco was on photo booth marketing Zoom calls, as was I, and we both tend to talk too much. Sorry. And I just really, a lot of the things that were his pain points, I resonated with. And so, of course, at PBX, like night one of Mastermind a couple years back, he just came up and introduced himself and was like, hey, there's a group of us going, down to the Strip. You want to come with us? And I almost said no. Like, gosh, I'm so glad that I didn't, because like, that like decision right there, like truly, it sounds like dramatic, but like changed my life and my trajectory. You came, Belinda came, and Angela, who I was in community with, was there, and Bianca as well. And I just adore her, and her sweet family. But, really from that day, like it was cool because Belinda was somebody that I'd actually paid to do some work for me because I wasn't as skilled at Photoshop at the time. So when we met, she's like, hey, are you Monica Gunnerlock? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I did that thing for you. It was like crazy small world. But I've literally talked to George and Belinda and Rudy Diaz every day since that day.
Wow.
Every single day. There's not a day. We've had two like Zoom, like we do like the Facebook Messenger calls. Like we've done that twice this week where all four of us just get on and just, we have a conversation. And sometimes it's personal stuff and sometimes it's work stuff. And a lot of times it's a mix. But like having that community is so cool. Unfortunately, we're in 4 different states. And so we're always, that was what the phone call was about this morning, is like, how can we get together? When are we going to hang out again? And I felt that in the community, seeing different posts, like there was a want for that too. Like people wanted to have this community, and they're, the folks from photo booth marketing who are just so much fun to be around. I just want to be their best friends and move to Ireland and hang out. Like they're just such fun people. They had mentioned they were going to a conference in Orlando that had to do with like amusement parks, and all of these people were jumping in like, I want to go. I'm like, the conference was expensive and didn't really have a whole lot to do with us, but people wanted to go to be around other photo boothers. And I just thought, what can we do? And wouldn't it be fun if? And so the wild hair, I was in Orlando having dinner with a couple other photo booth people, and they were just crazy enough to be like, yeah, do it. You should do it. Let's do it. And so I was just like, let me invite some people that I want to get to know onto this cruise in January. It was take a vacation in January. We work really hard over the holidays. So I always take myself on a vacation. And I wanted to invite my core four, my Rudy and Belinda and George, on vacation with me. I was like, hey, this is the way we can hang out. And then I thought, like, what if like we invited more people? Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. So it was kind of like a test. Would this even work? And it worked. And we invited y'all along with a bunch of other people. And very quickly, people were like, yes, let's do this. I want to hang out. And there was no agenda. I wasn't making money off of it. I just wanted to be in community with people. And it's so great that we can have these conversations and learn so much from each other. We started our group chat for the people that were going on the cruise, and the group chat is still going on. You guys have probably muted it and check in from time to time, but sometimes I have to mute it as well. But there's just a whole chat of like, what camera this and how do you recommend that? There's somebody that's great at something within that group, and it's cool to see that people are sharing expertise, but also like white labeling. It's like, oh, well, who's in this area? And we have this really cool community now that
more than using it, like
so cool.
A lot of those people are in some of these other smaller communities with me, so I can say with some amount of knowledge that even though this is a newer community, like everyone seems to be going there first. Like I see them asking questions in that group, but not in any of our other private groups. So like it's built like, I don't want to say be a cliche and say a family, but people are like creating cards for people that are sick or having kids and stuff. It is the most close-knit group that we're a part of. And I commend you for whatever you did to create that. Maybe it was the cruise, maybe it was, I don't know what it was, but it is
What's a shared experience, right? Like we had a shared experience, but also we did something together. We're not just like a profile picture on Facebook. Like we know each other in a different way. We've vacationed together. We've traveled together. We all got sick together.
A whole nother level. A whole nother level.
But you know somebody on a different level, you know, that they're not just this face on a screen.
Yeah. And not everybody, I want to say, not everybody was on board, because when you guys came, I was like, this is a crazy, this is a crazy, I can't even imagine vacationing with, because, you know, technically we're all like coworkers, right? Like we all are kind of like coworkers. Like I can't imagine going on vacation with a bunch of coworkers. And it took me a second, like, and that's the thing, not everybody. And I love that about Monica. I love that about you and George too, Rudy. Not everybody is like, I know you, Monica, you're really great about like being out there. And I don't really have that kind of, you know, like I'm always just like, I'm going to hide in my house. I'm like working. And I'm not saying that I'm not actually working. I am actually working. It's just like, it's hard. I'm one of those people that's like hard to get out and like, out and about and mingle with people, like socialize, like even PBX, it took someone like kind of like, you know, really putting on the pressure for me to go to my first PBX. And when you talked about like how you met George and how it changed your trajectory, that was the same exact experience for me, because like I did not want to be at PBX. And that's the truth. There's a lot of people that are just like, why am I going to waste my time at that? It's just a bunch of people looking at photo booths and props and stuff, you know, like that's how I saw it. And it's people like you that like really reach out and like give people that extra push, because I am one of those people that needed the extra push, and I'm so glad that I went. I wish I got to hang out with you guys more, because I saw the photos. I'm like, was I even there?
Oh, we wanted, you know, it's understandable, like with your family. And I even wanted it that way. Like bring your kids, bring your family, like, go do a thing. But then, you know, maybe
there's a lot of people that brought families and kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean
So
that's very powerful. Just like plan a trip with a bunch of like boothers that you get along with shortly after the cruise. I mean the cruise was
Or
incredible
even if
for
you don't,
all of us. Like Lab
yeah,
mentioned, she didn't get out very often, but one of the times she did get out, and I don't know if we've mentioned this in a previous podcast or not, but one of the nights she did get out, we stayed up drinking late one night and just started talking about how I used to podcast. And that's why we're here today, because of the conversations we were having on that cruise
yes,
late one night with
yeah,
the bar telling us they couldn't serve us anymore. And, we decided, because at the time I was like, I think I'm going to go in a different direction this time. I think I'm going to do like TikTok because that's what people are doing now. And Laugh was like, no, you're doing a podcast. And I want to do it with you. So we talked about it there and kind of hammered it out and stuff. And
yeah.
that's where this was born. And then shortly after, Jeff Libby in Denver was doing a showcase, and a bunch of his friends wanted to go support him there. And since so many of us were going, we decided to just get a big Airbnb that Monica again took the lead on and found and secured for everybody and whatnot. That had 2 living spaces and a bunch of rooms, and it was like real world photo booth edition for all of you that are old enough to remember Real World.
I didn't got like a space together.
Yeah,
well, that was like what
was awesome.
So cool. Yeah, like coming out of the cruise is like actually having this community. And like, well, one thing is like I saw Jeff Libby's event from previous years and I was like, I want to get invited to it. And I never thought I would, and then I got him to come on the cruise. He was one of the first people that was like, yes, I'm in. And then I got to, get to know him better. And then we went to Denver together and like, we're in communication. I'm doing my second event for Jeff in a couple of weeks where I'm white labeling for him. But like, how cool was it? Like, it could have been a train wreck, but we just all got a house and like got to hang out together. And like, probably it was one of my favorite pictures I took was just like Jason and Mitch just sitting on the couch, both with their laptops open, talking about stuff I could never understand. And I was just like, how cool is this experience? Like, we don't have coworkers that we hang out with in the office or go get drinks with afterwards, but it's pretty cool that we can make it happen.
Yeah, we're like our own coworkers, just all across the nation.
Yeah, and I love talking shop. And, my staff are all really good in their respective areas. Like you mentioned, the conversation with Nick, like I mean, with Mitch, I can't have that conversation with any of my staff. Like they're good at sales or good at, different areas. But as far as like, getting into the programming and stuff or the back end of stuff or the website, like it's good to learn from each other, but it's also just good sometimes to just sit and show off what each one of us are doing and what we've accomplished and just, relish in what we've been doing and just basically just talking shop. And it was really, really like, I'm a cruiser, so I love the cruise, but that was almost more valuable without like all the other distractions of us all just, waking up and having breakfast at the same table with all our laptops and just bouncing off what each of us were doing and going to lunch someplace and just hanging out in the living room, chatting about our different events and our hardships and stuff. It was almost like a, I don't know, retreat. It was really good.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. So I want to keep doing that and, keep like encouraging other people to like find your competitors in your market. Like Jessica Langdon literally lives down the street from me and we can chat. We go have lunch. Another guy, Eric, who's probably like an hour from me, another photo boother. Hey, I saw you on social media and we should have lunch. And 3 of us went and had lunch and he's messaging again like, hey, when do we get together again? And it's so great to know that like, God forbid like, something happen. Not only do I just like, there's other people out there I can reach out to, but like I have a personal relationship with these people and I know that they'll have my back in a situation. Or like Jessica needed to borrow a Surface Pro because hers wasn't delivered yet. And I just let her have it. Or well, she didn't keep it. I let her borrow it for the day. And she came with me to, give me guidance on the 360. There is so much work to go around and it's so great to have. It is just a peace of mind to know other people in your community.
it's a great support system too. We don't talk a lot about that, like how our road as entrepreneurs is very, very lonely. Having people, not just people that you can like talk shop with, but I feel a lot of us don't talk about how like is this like tight knit community that you have with your peers, like people that you are really friends with. They're the ones that like, you know, like I've had moments where I'm like, oh my God, I quit. You know, I quit. I'm done. I don't want to do this. You know, I've had those moments. Through the years, I've had those moments. And I've had people who are like, you're not done. Come on, keep on going. You know, people who cheer you on and like push you forward when you just like ready to just sit down and be like, throw in the towel. There's people there that are in your community that are your competitors are like, get your butt up and keep on going. And I wouldn't be here. And a lot of us, it's not just me. There's a lot of us in our industry where it's your close friendships that you have with people in the community that have kept us going through like the harder times, and we're still standing because we have that community. So I feel like that's such a huge thing that a lot of people don't talk about. Like if you are a lone boother and you're trying to go through the struggle of like being an entrepreneur by yourself, you really should get yourself to PBX. You really should like get into like connecting with people and building real friendships. Not even just, I mean, of course we're talking about business opportunity and like, you know, your company growing from like the knowledge and everything you learn from everybody else. But there's also the whole aspect of like having that moral support that like your spouses, your friends, they're not going to understand the stuff that we go through.
Yeah, I can see my husband's eyes like glaze over sometimes when I'm like, oh, and he's even kind of in the wedding world or in the events world. It's different. And I send my competitors' business too. Like, are we like all vying for a lot of the same stuff? Sure. But like, you know, if I have like a repeat client that wants something and I'm not available that day or whatever, you know, sure, I'm going to white label them out. But like, if it's a one-off like birthday event or, you know, one-off anything, a one-off wedding, I'm not going to go through all the motions of white labeling and being worried about, are they going to do a good job? And, you know, not that I'm, you know, anything. It's just like, it's easier for me to just send it to them. I have a form email is like, unfortunately, we're busy this day. These are people we love working with. Call them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
because you have
that
those
camaraderie.
You have those conversations with these companies. So when you're referring your clients to them, you know that they're going to take care of your client. You know, you're not referring them to a company that's going to drop the ball. So that's a huge part of, you know, making sure that you connect with people on a real level too. Because, you know, there's some companies that will like say, yeah, we do this, you know, like, yeah, we do glam, but you know, they don't, you know, so you know not to refer that client to that photo booth company. But yeah,
I'm also a big proponent on not leaving people with no.
Of course, yeah.
Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
And people like you brought up, and we discussed with Brittany a few weeks ago on the show. Like people are always going to work with the people that they like to work with, and they know and they've become friends with and whatnot. And another example from that same, just from our meeting in Vegas, it was before the cruise. I had booked a job in Georgia, and I had some peers who I really respect their opinion of tell me who I need to book in Georgia to help me with execute this event. But I had never worked with them before, and I had never worked with Monica before, but at least I knew her and we hung out and I liked her and I could see her work. So when I went to Georgia, I had Monica come help me with that event because I knew and liked her, you know, even though I had strong recommendations from people that I really trust their opinion. Ultimately, people are going to work with who they already know and trust. So just that circle of influence is just so important.
Yeah. For sure. Like just, that's one of the things I love about this, you know, or a community that I'm trying to build is, just knowing somebody and being comfortable with somebody, and people buy from people. You know, like I never owned a Danny Max booth before, and I really wasn't in the market to buy one, but I met him and his wife. I'm like, these are just like great people. I want to be in business with them because they're so great. That was like, okay, I'm going to make room for, you know, more booths. But it's just great, you know, and then anytime you need to like call somebody. I mean, I deal with, Check Cherry or Snap Pick or whatever. When you go there and you get to like see this person like in real life, you're like, oh, I'm the dummy that didn't know X, Y, and Z and bug you all year. But no, it's just great to be face to face with people. I think that's really important. And I mean, physiologically, humans need that, crave that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also like some of the other benefits, I know like there's, we talked about like how each of us as photo boothers, we all have our own tidbit of knowledge and experience or capabilities that we have that, maybe the next boother doesn't have. There's something Jason can do that I can't do. There's something you can do, vice versa. And I feel like when you build really great relationships, and that this all stems from like you getting yourself out there to these events, to PBX, signing up for these classes, and like having these things to relate with other boothers. Like when something does hit the fan, and you're sitting there at your event, you're like, no, I have no idea how to fix this. Who in your band of like connections within the industry, who is ideal to reach out to. Like, who has strengths with like creativity, who has strengths with like troubleshooting, whatever software you're using. And that is like your saving grace. Like there's going to be moments where you have 5 minutes to figure out how to fix your problem, and just having the right connections around you, who to reach out to quickly, that can just, and that's one of the huge parts of like the network that you have beyond just the boards, you guys. Like, I feel a lot of us, we've been able to grow because we have invested a lot in the connections of the people around us, and we've had people save us, like I've had people save me, I've saved other people, and it doesn't have, I know Monica, you brought up like people locally around you, but I can say like there's been occasions where like I was out at an event in LA and for whatever reason, I didn't have my computer. So I was able to like on my phone message somebody, dude, can you go help me do this really quick? And they were able to remote in, resolve the issue really fast. And, and this is somebody from like clear across the country helping me, and I've done that for other companies as well. So like having those relationships beyond the boards, you guys, like not just posting, a question on the boards and having random strangers who may or may not, and you guys always hear me talking about this, like they may or may not know what they're what they're talking about when they answer. When you have real relationships with people in our industry, like friends that you develop relationships with, like, if they actually know what they're talking about. So like Monica, networking, I know like if I'm asking you a question about networking, I know what you're giving me, the answer you're giving me, I know what you're talking about, Jason, like I know like if I need to talk about like organization and like systems and stuff, I know Jason's the guy to go to, so if I'm looking for specific advice, I know to go to him for like organization and like training and teams and things like that, because I know that's his strength, so that's a huge part of like, I feel a lot of people that are newer don't realize the benefits, because you hear a lot about people talking about like community over competition. It's not always about like knowledge. Like you hear a lot of people like community over competition, so spoon feed me like the camera set. It's not even about camera settings. It's not even about like niche, because we're asking about secret services that you offer. It's not even about secret services that you offer. It's just about like, we all have talents, and the more people you connect with in our industry, the more you have the support on the back end, like for various things. Like I know George had talked to me about like something that wasn't really photo booth related, but it was business related, about like a voice over internet thing. I probably mentioned it to you, like a voice over internet phone that he was trying to configure, and he knew who to reach out to like walk him through trying to troubleshoot that,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I even, I knew that Mitch Miller's super good tech guy. And I was white labeling with a company that was using software that I wasn't familiar with. And I reached out to Mitch, and he also didn't use the software, but he's smart enough to troubleshoot some things with me. And it was just great that I know that I can pick up the phone and like connect with Mitch, or, I know like lighting and stuff, like I can send George a sample photo and he can tell me like what adjustment to make. And almost I don't like sharing photos with him because he's so critical and pick out everything where I'm like, look how perfect. And he's like, well, actually, if you did this, and I'm like, he's right, damn it. But we have to like have those tools in the pocket. Like I'm quick to say I'm pretty good at a lot of stuff, but you know, there are a lot more people that are a lot smarter than me that can make me better, and
we
to be open to it and open to criticism. And I don't know, I feel like I'm branching off my ADHD brain.
No,
like,
I
we think about this, but
I love you brought that up because there was a topic about like criticism that we had done in a past event, but like I had talked about like we all have different communication style. Like my communication style is very different from your communication style, and you know how you read my messages may or may not come off the way that I intend it to be. You know what I mean? And just being able to like look past. And this is my struggle, you guys. Like I am very, you know, I'm very like straightforward with my delivery on things, and some people don't really like that. But just being able to like read through what I'm saying and like reading the advice that I'm giving is a huge part of like, not everybody, I don't know what my point is, you guys know what I'm saying. Like the point is like, if you're open to learning and you want to learn the message of who's delivering it, how they're saying it, it may or may not be similar to your communication style, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not important for you to like grow.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things. Like one, like knowing somebody in person and having met them in person. I wasn't sure about a few people, and then I met them in person, and I was like, I actually really like this human.
Yeah.
And so when I see their writing styles online, I don't take it as any other way than, you know, they're just putting out a message. And I think,
but I think you also hear their voice because you actually met them.
Right.
Yeah. People who, and I hear this a lot, like people who have not met me and talk to me, when they see the things that I say, in their mind, it comes off a certain way. But when you actually meet me, like, you know, that's the way I communicate. And it sounds totally different when you hear it in my voice.
Well, also, I like that you can get your point across in one sentence. I take like 4 paragraphs and like 3 sidebars.
That's me too. I am so long-winded.
And people are like, you know, people could take it as like too direct, which I think is like, for women that's a whole other conversation. But
Monica, that is so true.
Right. But like, Lap's going to answer your question. It's just right there, bam, done. When I think, you know, I saw a post recently that people said, or somebody posted, why is everybody so rude? And another friend of mine had sent me a screenshot and was like, oh, I hate when this guy posts. He gets on my nerves and he's just showing off. And like in both of those instances, I'm like, that's your lens. Like how you're reading that and how you're taking that is on you. And so when you have a feeling about anything, especially when it's negative, you got to ask yourself why. And you got to admit, I see stuff too where I'm like, oh, they're just showing off. No, I'm just jealous that I'm not in Italy too. You know what I mean? I'm just jealous that I didn't get, you know, this A-list celebrity booking. It's not somebody showing off. It's not somebody being rude. Like, you're never going to grow by somebody patting you on the back and telling you that your photo could have been lit better, and they're not telling you that. And you just can't take stuff so personally. You know, there are people out there that do want to be assholes, but I think for the most part, it's our lens of like being offended at a criticism when it's like you take that and grow, because would you rather it from a colleague, or do you want your client to tell you?
Yeah,
that's not tell you. Your client's not going to tell you, you know what, your photos kind of sucked. They're just not hiring you again.
Yeah, like we talked about that in one of our past podcasts, I believe. We've been doing so many, I can't remember. I think we talked about that in one of our past podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, a lot of people will say like, my client loved me, but I can't get them to leave a review. If you're asking your client like on the spot, yeah, of course, most people generally are nice and they'll be like, oh, thank you so much. Everything was great. Will you leave a review? Of course. Thank you. but then they may turn around and be like, good Lord, that booth was a hot mess. People just are nice. They don't tell you to your face that something was wrong, and they just don't use you again.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like I would rather hear it from my peers so that I have the opportunity to like assess the issue that I wasn't, there's some things that I might not know is wrong with my photo. Like I keep referencing past podcasts because I know we talked about this in a past podcast, but where we had
that's okay.
gaps,
Send people to other episodes.
Go back to the other episodes because there's a lot of things that we discuss, and this is one of them. Is when I first started, like I had a DJ come up to me and tell me my gap was crooked, and I got so upset. And I am very thankful now. I mean, I had like Min is really on point with like getting his setups like very clean, and when I started following him, it made that connection. So the DJ told me, and I was so offended. But years later, when I started seeing Min's like setup shots and stuff, it finally made the connection for me, like how big of a deal it was. So I think that's huge. Like just because your client doesn't say anything to you doesn't mean that it's good enough, because they're in their mind, they might be thinking, this guy sucks. I'm going to call somebody else for our next event. They're never going to tell you that. You're just not going to get that call for the next session. So I would rather like one of you guys tell me, Lap, your photos on this last activation, really the lighting is off. And that's another thing. Like if my lighting is off, I would rather someone in our industry tell me so I can go and study more about the lighting, like what I did wrong, white balance, so that our next event, our white balance is improved. Like that just allows your company to grow and be better at what we do. I know like a lot of us, we get, especially all of us, right? We've been doing this so long. There's a lot of people that tell us like, oh, you guys have been doing this all this time. Like you guys know everything. None of us know everything. We're all of us. There's this misconception, especially because of the way I communicate. Like I'm very direct, and it comes off like as if I'm, people who don't know me don't realize like I am having conversations with Jason, a lot of other friends like Min and Billy out of New York. We talk all the time, and it's, we throw ideas around. We're like, okay, this camera is doing this. What can we do to make it better? This connection is this. And, so we're always learning, growing, R&D, like even basic stuff like lighting. Like I have a past podcast that we did. I have invested so much money in like so many LEDs, because you want to grow, you want to get better. And someone pointed out that the lighting is not as bright with these LED sticks. So then I started looking at panels, like it allows you to grow. Yeah.
We had that conversation in our core fort this morning. Rudy works at Columbia University, and he does headshots all day long. And he saw a setup at PBX, and he was like, I want to try a light like that. And he got the light in, and he took us around his office and showed us the light and how, like, sure, my headshots look good, but his headshots look great. And so it's cool that, we have that community where he can tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to that circle of influence again. Lab, you mentioned that so many people are like, well, you guys know everything. You've been in this industry for so long. And you mentioned that we don't. Another reason they may assume that we do is because we're not asking a lot of questions in the group because of those circles of influence. Like you mentioned, like Mitch, we've mentioned Mitch's name a couple times on this episode alone, and he knows that I don't know anything because he is my, like, if there's something about coding or something, like I am getting a hold of him. Lap certainly knows that I don't know everything, because like every few weeks I'm calling her and I'm like, hey, I just got this client that has this off the wall request. Have you ever done anything like this? So it's so much better to have an understanding of, like Lap mentioned, that if she has a question about like building systems and organizations or teams, it's good to know who to go for instead of just shotgunning a Facebook group, because maybe you'll meet someone new that's good in a certain area, but you are going to pick up a lot of just random things and arguments and comments that don't go anywhere. It's much better to know exactly who is good in that area and go directly to the source.
Yeah. I don't need 20,000 strangers to like answer me, and half of them are not really an answer anyways. And then the other quarter is wrong. When like I have this person in my back pocket that I can chat with, but also like the more I didn't go to PBX for a long time because I knew what I was doing. What do I need to go there for? Like
A lot of people have that mentality.
Yeah.
I had that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a stubborn human, but like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's so like overwhelming. I think that's, you know, when you're like, let's interview you. I'm like, why? Don't know anything.
That's funny. When you say that, I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, I'm thinking, what do you mean? Because we all have that whole mentality of ourselves. Like, we don't see ourselves how anybody else sees us. So when you tell me, like, who am I? I'm thinking, are you serious? I think you're amazing. Like, the stuff that you do the stuff that you put out is awesome. But
definitely,
yeah. We all struggle with that.
Right. And even like, what are your goals? Like, my goal is not to have my goal this year and last year too was less events and more money. I don't want to do 1,000 events, and I don't want to, you know, have a staff of 25. As much as I like respect the hell out of you, Jason, like I love everything you're doing. I think is the coolest thing ever. That is so cool for you. And that is not my dream. And that's totally cool. You know, so it's just like, I still want to learn from those people. But I think maybe some people that are easily offended, you know, think, oh, well, you know, if I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to get respect in the community or deserve respect or anything like that. Where it's just like, some people are totally cool with having it just their side business, but you still need to respect like people doing it well. But I don't think devaluing, I can't get my words out. What I'm trying to say, it's like here, but I can't get it here. You know, like,
okay, we don't all have the same goal.
Part-time person, and you can still do a great job.
Yeah.
And you can still make a lot of money as a side thing. And that doesn't make you lesser than anybody else out there. So long as you're doing a good job at what you're doing and you know what I mean? You're paying your taxes and you have your, you know, all your ducks in a row.
I love that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things that I saw early on, like when I first started going to PBX, like the conversation that I had with people that I was meeting for the first time, like it was, how many events do you do a year? And when I first started, my goal was not to be making, you know, a certain dollar amount, like $1 million. Like that never even crossed my mind that I would ever be making that, right? In my mind at that time, in my first years, I think I did like 14 events my first year. So when people would come at me and be like, I did 300 events a year, I just remember thinking, that's cool, but that's not really like, I mean, I have a toddler that's 6 months, you know, like I am not trying to do 300 events, and that's okay. And I love that you brought that up, Monica, because I don't feel like a lot of people really discuss that. Like, we aren't all trying to achieve, we're not all trying to travel all over the country. We're not all trying to make, you know, like multi-city, multi-office businesses. We don't all have the goals. Like back in the day when I first started, 50 events would have been my goal. Like I would have been super happy with 50 events. And once I hit it, I achieved my goal, you know, and we're all different. We all have different circumstances. Some of us have day jobs. Some of us are moms. Some of us have multiple businesses, and it's okay. I don't think that there's like this weird competition where people feel like you have to throw numbers or like gross dollar amounts, and it's not necessary. Like your only competition should be yourself. And that's always my approach on everything. Like I've always thought like, okay, last year I did 15, this year I want to hit 50, and then I want to, you know, and it doesn't have to be events, because just because you do volume and events doesn't mean you actually make more in profit. You know, like somebody who does 20 events a year possibly could be making $1 million, you know? So we all have different goals. We run our business different. We have different types of events that we do, and you guys don't have to compete. Just grow and be better at what you do every single day. So educate yourself for your own business, for your own growth. And you'd be surprised. Yeah. Like it trips me out. Like we talked about this, all of us, like, you know, it trips me out when other people meet me and they're like, oh my gosh, Lap, like you are whatever they think I am. And I don't see myself like that. So I don't know if that's imposter syndrome, because I just see myself just like I'm hustling, trying to make a living like every other person. You're like, I don't see myself. I think people have this perception of who we are, but it's not necessarily, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or if it's not, we just don't see it like that. Like we just see it like we're hustling to make a living and we're trying to support our team. We're trying to grow. You're not really looking at it like, oh, I'm like so-and-so in the industry. No, I'm not, none of us are, like Jason, I look up to you for like having a whole team and having all your systems and, being able to go on vacation. We talked about this in another podcast. Like I look up to that and I would love to one day have that business, but I know like I run my business a different way and, I want to learn from Jason. So I don't think that I am all knowing and teaching everybody. And Jason, I know you don't think that. And Monica, I know you don't think that, although you guys both have your strengths, that I would definitely see, Monica networking, you're a leader in that. Jason, you're a leader in systems, but we all have strengths and then we have weaknesses that we can grow,
Yeah.
Stop.
And everyone's
stop judging each other and stop competing because you're only competing with yourself.
Yeah, and your goals are valid. If they're not the same goals as our goals, like you mentioned, our team and the amount of events we do and whatnot, and so many people do approach me at PBX and talk about, they'd love to be where I'm at and whatnot. But more often than not, those people are likely making more money personally than I am because this is all very expensive. I am very top heavy, but I have different goals and things that I'm working towards. Like I've got a very clear exit strategy that I'm working towards and I love what I'm doing. But next year my wife's retiring and in a couple of years, like I want to be able to retire with her. I want to be able to go and travel and do the things that retired people do. And I don't want to have a fire sale of my photo booth company at that point. I don't want to just have like, all right, here's a bunch of used photo booths to sell. I want to be able to have something that I could just hand over to somebody that is completely automated, that they don't have to do anything. We have all the moving parts in place and all the systems, and obviously there's a balance there. Having that large team and all those systems and whatnot is expensive. So I don't make personally as much money as a lot of people that are solo ops do, but I've got a lot more freedoms and I'm able to like we're going to New England this summer to just poke around and whatnot, and I have full confidence that my company's going to run it. So
jealous. I'm so jealous. I know, that's insane. That's insane and amazing. That's insane and amazing.
Yeah, that it keeps running. Yeah, I'm going to Paris for 10 days, but like my laptop is like in a backpack that comes with me everywhere because I don't have all the systems and operations. Yeah. So it's like, well, maybe I do want to do what Jason's doing. Maybe you could change my mind right now. Yeah, it's certainly something, everybody does something a little different. And I think that when people, it's so beautiful to like love and respect everybody at different levels of where they are.
Celebrate everybody too, because you're like what I find like that moment of success for me, to you, it might be something small, but for me, that's a huge leap and a huge achievement for me. So just being able to celebrate each other is a huge part of like, the support system and like the value of like the community that we're a part of. And it's crazy because I can't stress this enough. I did not want to go to my first PBX. I dragged my feet till the last day. I'm in California. So I literally, you guys, I just drive over like 3 hours and I'm there, right? So I made the decision literally last minute. Okay, let's just go. I'm just going to go. And I dragged my feet there. And every year I drag my feet there. People think that I like, like a lot of people will start reaching out like, Lap, are you going to go to PBX this year? Every year. And I'm not lying. And I am sure Jason has asked me too, like, hey Lap, when are you coming to PBX this year? Like, are you coming? I'm like, I don't know. Every year I think twice about it because I'm not making this up, you guys, because I just, I don't like to put myself out there like other people. So I really do drag my feet every single year. And every single year, last minute, I book my room and I show up, and it has been such a huge investment. It has been a huge investment and it's allowed me to grow. I definitely we wouldn't be podcasting. We wouldn't have been in the Caribbean. It's just that one small step, which just opens up a whole different world for you.
Yeah, you just never know what yes might bring.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And yeah, I'm so thankful that some people, I'm thankful that every single person that joined us in January went and said yes, because it was a relationship that may have never happened. Like, I didn't even know who Billy was before he came. You know, he was invited.
I do not know who Billy is. Who
doesn't know? I was like, who's this person on our invite list? Like, you know, George, let me curate this list. And I was like, well, so I did know once I was like, okay, he was at Mastermind and I do know of him now, but still he was just a person on the internet.
Yeah.
And now he's somebody that like a company needed somebody in Atlanta and Billy said, Monica's there. Yeah. And they weren't even like, they didn't come to me and be like, what have you done? Let me see your work. Who are you? Like nothing. They were like, hey, you available? You're hired. And it was just like, because Billy recommended me.
Yeah.
Because they trust him to know that like, but then when there was some tech issue at another point where I couldn't get a hold of people, I got a hold of Billy and Billy's like, oh, well, let me log in and let me like fix this for you. And it was just like, again, just having connections is so cool. And putting yourself out there is hard. My husband is also more introverted like you, Lap. And it's hard to like get him out. But then once he is, he's like, well, I'm really glad that, you know, I did that.
No, but it's not introverted though. It's something else. It's something in between. I forget what it's called. It's called something else though. It's not.
I'll own it.
It's not introvert. It's something else. It's like omnivert or something. So like you don't want to go out, but once you get out, then you're super social. So when I'm out, I love like moving around the room, talking to so it's like something in between. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some people need that push. Jason,
I'm like the opposite. Like I'm cool to go out. Like, yeah, let's go out, and then I'll wallflower all night because I don't. Like, no one wants to talk. What are we gonna talk about?
Yeah, and it's crazy because like Jason, I've known Jason since my first PBX. Like the memory I have of Jason's hilarious, but like it wasn't. And I've known him for several years. We've chatted, you know, on and off through the years, and we've talked about like boothing and systems and stuff like that. But like. I feel like at the cruise when we actually at 2:30 in the morning when we're eating pizza, like that really, we actually had like a moment to really have full on conversation, you know, like it was just, and it's not something that you expect when you're booking like vacation with the coworkers. Like I didn't expect to be sitting there at 2:30 in the morning, you know, eating pizza and chatting about podcasts, you know? So it's really cool how everything unfolds. I think 9 years later, Jason, right? 9 years, 8 years later.
Yeah, probably. That sounds about right. It's been a long time.
Yeah. And I knew of Jason's podcast at the first PBX that I attended. Like I remember like the profile photos, and it's so crazy to be where it's at now. Yeah.
Right here. I love it. I'm so excited for you guys.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of things that we're working on to bring more education. Because I'm learning that we do have a lot of stuff to give.
Yeah. And finding, I would like to like jump in there and say that I'm like so interested in finding ways to bring people together for that type of, you know, like education or like, you know, we didn't do that on the cruise like purposefully. But I think there is definitely areas that, you know, just room for that somewhere. I'll have to brainstorm sometime.
Yeah. I'm always game for a brainstorm.
So Monica, can I just ask, like, I've seen some really cool stuff that you've done, and you mentioned like, you're like, oh, who am I? I saw you did like this amazing event at the stadium near you. Like, was that your most amazing event, or like, what would you say in your career has been like the most amazing event or client that you've worked with, or like delivery?
Well, that's so like, I'm a person that I don't have favorites. Like, what's your favorite restaurant, color, anything? I don't like, I have like things that I really like for different reasons, right? Like, obviously my corporate clients are going to be my favorite monetarily, but you better believe that I cry at any wedding where I can hear the speech. I don't know these people from Adam, but you better believe I'm like bawling and I'm like, I want to be a part of your family. I love you guys. You know, so it's like there's these events that are like so beautiful. I got to do an event for a family that was like, they adopted their son after like 7 years of like fighting it. You know, I just got booked. I have goosebumps thinking about a lady called me that had seen my booth at another event, that was referred from another person. It's all this like snowball, right? But her husband beat cancer, and they're inviting all the doctors and nurses over for a celebration.
Oh, wow.
So like, are those like make my heart so happy. And it was just such an honor, like truly, I feel like I use that word a lot with my clients, but it's such an honor to be a part of something so beautiful. But like favorite client or what have you, I have a client or a planner who's like I just love being around her, and she's so much fun, that I'm like socially, I'm like, can we just hang out all the time? I get an email from her literally that is like, book me for this date, this time, put it on the schedule. And she knows that I'm going to take care of those clients, and they're mitzvahs. And I don't even like mitzvahs, but I like her and I like working with her. As far as like one single event, like, you know, I mentioned it, and it's going to be real hard to beat this one. So it's the only one I got like in my bag that I'm like frequently mentioned, because I don't know how it gets beat. But I had the opportunity to work with Dave Chappelle in Atlanta.
How amazing.
Y'all, I was like, it was right around Thanksgiving too. I was supposed to go out of town and see my family. And like, I got this inquiry, and, you know, I put in my form, like the location, and they put State Farm Arena, and was like, and I Googled it. I was like, there's no way. No way. And I called up my mom. I was like, hey, I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm working with Dave Chappelle on Sunday. I was supposed to drive to my mom's house in Ohio. I was like, nope. And my mom's like, yeah, go. You know, they're so super supportive for stuff like that. So,
awesome.
And in the middle of the night, well, first, like, Dave did this tour, and he like brought like the best of the best celebrities in that town and put on this like whole show, whether you're a comedian or singer or like, you know, whatever. And it was so cool. And then he played his like documentary movie that he made over COVID. And so like walking backstage of like Usher and T.I. and like all of these greats of Atlanta were just like in the hallways, and I got to do like the after party for them. So the VIP after party with all of these celebrities. I was like, is this real life? Like, be cool. So that was obviously incredible. But what was more incredible is in the middle of the night, like literally like after midnight, the woman that hired me was like, we're going to be in New York tomorrow, and we want this exact thing. Do you know someone? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I went on Community, and I was like, going to type out like who's available in New York. And I was like, wait a minute. Cause our plan was also that we were going from Ohio to Pennsylvania. And I was like, why don't I do it? I can do this. I'm going to do it. And I was like, I can be there tomorrow. And she's like, no, you can't. I was like, yeah, I can. And so I finished my post, but I still look for somebody in New York. And I didn't think between midnight and 5 a.m. I would find anybody. I like took all of my clothes that I needed for Thanksgiving and my in-laws. And I was so scared to do this. So like to ship my photo booth. Oh my gosh. So I put all my clothes in the case. So like it added extra padding, and like completely packed my road case with my clothes. And I was getting on a plane at like 7 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
And in the meantime, Rob Burgos messaged me, and he goes, hey, I'm available. And I was like, cool. We just need your equipment. And I didn't want to tell people what it was, but it was like kind of important that they were good. And Rob is amazing, by the way, in New York. At this time, I didn't have a community, y'all. Like now I think about like, I have like 10 people in New York I could have called, but at the time I didn't. And I'm so glad I found him, and he was so great. But like, literally I was like, okay, well, meet me at Madison Square Garden at 3. He was like, what? And yeah, so I got to do Dave Chappelle's show again, really cool. At Madison Square Garden. Like, holy moly, like that's like a venue that like I just dream of I had never even been there before, you know, like for a show, wow. Like let alone to like be a vendor was like, phew. And then in the middle of the night again, they were like, hey, we're going to DC. I kind of like looking back, I'm like, I don't know if I regret not doing that one or not. But with my family, I told them, I got on a plane and flew to New York City and literally like got out of a cab and was like, take me to Madison Square Garden, and like toted my stuff in and like changed my clothes in the bathroom. But my family drove up to New York City and we ended up having like a fun day with the kids there before we went for Thanksgiving. But I did turn down the DC one and I like just gave it to another boother. And he's like, do you want me to like pay you? And I was like, no, just take it. Here's all the assets. Have a great time. And he was super thankful for that. And it just felt like, good karma, it'll come around, but real hard to beat going to New York City in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I got to see Usher up real close and I almost cried. So there was that. Any event that'll bring me Usher like real close, singing. And, like Usher in a restaurant, not exciting. Usher on a stage.
That's such a cool story. That's so awesome.
That's my long-winded answer. Ask one question. You have a whole podcast.
Well, we're at an hour and a half, so we should probably wrap up. We could probably talk for 5 more hours if we don't stop at some point. But do you have any closing questions for us before we leave?
All of the questions and none of the, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to listen to whatever you guys have to say, like your podcast or your comments online or anything. Like, you two are people that I look up to so much, and we often have different perspectives, but I think like the weight, your words have weight of gold. Like, I don't know. You guys tell me what I need to know.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Monica.
So thank you for doing this. And I'm so glad that it came about because you guys are amazing humans.
It's awesome having you on.
I appreciate it. It means a lot. Show topics. Do you have any topics that we have missed that you can suggest?
You got some good ones already. Show topics. I had an answer earlier. I forgot it. Can we edit
That's
that
okay.
out? Maybe like there was another question on there that like you guys were going to ask, like what I thought was interesting was like, if you could wave a wand, like what like photo booth feature would be there?
Which feature do you feel most softwares are lacking?
Right.
If you could wave a wand. Yeah.
So then my first thought was, well, facial recognition, the way I would love to see that in Photo Boost, the way Spot My Photos does it. And then you guys interview James from Curator, and he's like, well, there's 14 softwares that do that. And I'm like, and then I thought, well, anything I come up with is like, oh, well, I wish this. I'm like, well, Darkroom does that. Well, I wish this. Well, Quick does that. Everybody has so many cool different features.
It's awesome that you know that, though. It's awesome that you know that, though, because a lot of people don't know that. They don't know what software's limitations and capabilities are.
So, yeah, I was like, well, anything I say will just be foolish because there's something out there. But I think that face recognition, I'm so excited to see what Curator's doing with that. Because, I mean, how many people do you have that are like, put your phone number in. They're like, oh, I already did. I'm like, yeah, but that was it for that photo. Do you want this one?
Every single time I have to do this every time I take a photo. And then, you're right. The facial recognition.
And even you guys know, like how if you're in an event, you take a bunch of photos and you've got like 25 different text messages and you're not going through like that. I love how Spot My Photos has like the whole gallery of all of your photos, and you can kind of look through all of them all at once, which is cool.
James said that video face recognition was coming, right, to Curator? I'm trying to remember. Did he say video?
I think he did say like stay tuned or something like that.
Yeah, like that's something that I've been waiting for a while because I feel like video is the direction of where a lot of photo booths are going to be going or already are going.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no. Well, definitely, yeah. I think there's like always going to be the classic basic bitch photo booth that's always just going to be around. You know what I mean? There's going to be a trend of this and a trend of that and a trend of this. At the end of the day, people want a photo of themselves, and having it printed is really cool.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Anyways, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Your podcasts are awesome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us. I know it's always like, you want to do what again? It's always hard being the first one in an experiment of a new, I don't know what you want to call this, a segment that we want to try. But I'm glad you are game and you joined us, and I think it went great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are we done recording?
Are we done yet? All right. Thanks everyone for joining us.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again, Monica.
The wheels fell off.
To keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group, Pro Booth Talk Community. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider showing your support by subscribing, liking, reviewing, or sharing this topic with someone in the industry.